Well, hello again, and welcome. So, this is another one of my videos for the Build It Yourself kit. This one is for Adventureland sign. Again, this is mostly for people who have purchased the sign. But if you would like to know where to purchase it or know more about the build, check out the link down in the description below, and you'll have all the infos that you need. All of them. And then, go ahead and buy it, and then follow the link, and then go back and forth, and then you'll be right back at this video. So the build process, it's pretty straightforward. It may not be so clear on what to do. That's why we have the videos. But it's a simple process. I try to design all the signs for the easiest way possible for me to build and for you to build. So anyway, let's get to it. Alright, so this first tool is a putty knife. I just wrap tape around it because I tend to hold it right there, and it just makes it softer. But this is good for lifting things up or getting the masking tape off. This is a sanding stick. You can get replacement sandpaper for it. This one kind of has a finer sandpaper. I have another one that's rough, but this is perfect because it has that angle, and you can know if it's flat or not. There's different sanding sticks that you can buy. Actually, in the link down on the help page, I have a couple. This is a pick. It's got that sharp end on the one side. It's like a poker. You could use it for prying things up again, or sometimes I have holes and things. You can use it to poke them out. Of course, you can't go wrong with a razor blade and a decent pair of scissors. Of course, we need some super glue, otherwise known as CA glue. This one happens to be the brand Starbond, which I highly recommend. They come with these little extra tips that make the opening smaller. It's like a needle nose kind of tip. It really helps for getting into smaller places, and this one just attaches right on. You can pull it off. And right along the super glue, we have accelerator. Most super glue should have this, but it basically makes it harden right away. There's aerosol, there's regular sprays, but different brands, but it should all work on either brand. So, obviously the first thing, we want to make sure that I gave you all the parts, because you never know. I try to do my best, but sometimes, your mind wanders, or you're doing something else, you're trying to do multitask, whatever. So, this is the base. They come in two parts. You glue each one of those together, and it makes the arch. And then we have the back part here, which has the logs that they get crisscross or whatever. And then it holds the tiki mask at the top, and of course the letters that go across. Of course, the letters spell Adventureland, so you should know what letters are in that. And then we have the tiki mask. And finally, you should have 6 of these faux leather cord cutoffs. These of course make the cross X's on the sign. As always, the first step will be to remove any of the masking tape. I tend to leave this on. Obviously it saves me time, which helps save you money in the long run, but also it just helps protect it along the way, and you can see where the burn marks are if you need to sand. It's just helpful for you to know where things stand, I guess. So the best thing to do is just go ahead and peel it all off, and then once that's done, we will take account for any burn marks or things that need to get sanded. Sometimes there's a lot of little pieces of masking tape, especially in between those lines in like the bamboo shapes. So sometimes it could be easier just to pull out some masking tape of my own or painter's tape and use that to kind of stick it to it, like here, just to make it easier to peel off, or at least to collect it in the end. So you can see on these two pieces, there are some burned areas. Sometimes that is just on the masking tape, but you know, it's a good place to check to see if, you know, after you pull off the masking tape, that there might be something you have to sand underneath it. However, in this case, it looks like we're fine. Okay, so here, start sanding. You can notice there's a little burning on the edges there. It's very light sanding. You don't need to push down, just kind of lightly rub it off. Again, this is plywood, so you don't want to keep sanding them till the top layer of plywood comes off. So just sand it lightly. Just go back and forth. Sometimes using rubbing alcohol will take care of it, but you know, for the most part, just take your time, go slow. You'll eventually get it all. So as I mentioned before, the base parts are coming in two pieces that we will glue together. I purposely cut it so it kind of matches the R shape there, and then you're going to glue the R on top of that, so it'll try to hide the areas where they come together. So again, I try to design things smartly and easy to do and all that. So that was just a little minor sanding that I did, and now we're gonna glue it together. Again, use some super glue. So I try to glue along the edge where the R is. One thing you do or recommend you should have is a silicone mat like that. Put it underneath. The glue tends to not stick to it as much, or at least not as much as it sticks to that mat underneath that. Okay, so now I will glue along that one edge. Don't use too much, but you know, just enough to hold it together. And then if you have the accelerator, I'd go ahead and spray it now. Otherwise, just hold it for a few seconds. And then try to move it right away so it doesn't stick to the silicone mat. And then we should be good. And then we'll pretty much do the same thing with the next layer, except we're going to do it in halves. So we're going to do the top one first, then stick it together. And then we will glue in the bottom half. And we did this separately just because I've done it enough times to where you're trying to glue them both at the same time, and one will dry faster than the other, it'll stick to the other mat, or you know, something will go wrong. So just do one at a time. So now we're going to attach both those parts together, but we don't need the silicone mat for that. When we glue it, it will be laying on top just like this. It's basically centered. We're going to glue the top and the bottom edges. We don't need to worry about the sides. You can do it if you want, not a big deal. This sign has a little warp in it, but as soon as we attach this one piece, it should be fine. Again, watch the holes for the cross stitches that go on. That should tell you where you need to line up. It should be right in between those. And then watch the sides and make sure you're centered. And just hold it down for a while. You could use the spray if you want, but I would just hold it down for a little bit. And then use the spray. Alright, so now we're going to attach the arch or cross, whatever, cross logs, or I think they were originally supposed to be like palm trees that were crossed together. I'm not sure. Anyway, we're going to attach that to the back side. You see that we line it up with the middle there, and we line it up between the holes, and we just want to make sure that we have the same spacing top to bottom, so it doesn't go on crooked. So now once we have that, we're just going to glue right where we had that. You ultimately could glue the back side of the arch itself, but it's easy enough just to mark it how I kind of did it just there. And just, a couple lines of glue should be enough. We'll throw it back on there, and if you want, again, just from now on, any of the parts that you glue, you want to hold it down for a couple seconds, or at least part way, and then spray the activator on one side maybe, and then both, one side or the other. Just depends on how big the part is, By the way, the little part right above my fingers there in the center, that's the hole for the nail for when you hang it. Again, I'm still holding it, but I'm spraying it enough so it gets underneath there and hardens the glue right away. Again, I'm showing you the hole for the nail and how it would sit in there. This next piece acts as a spacer between the nail hole and the mask that's going to go on top of it. Alright, now we're going to put the mask on, but first we got to glue his nose. It should fit right in the little grooves. Just keep playing with it. It'll drop down in there. You'll feel it. And then we'll glue this onto the top position, just on top of that spacer like I just showed you. Again, just a few, marks of glue, shouldn't take that much. In this case, I also glued a tiny drop on top of the bamboo, right where the chin meets that, because it sits right on top of that too. Alright, we're more than halfway done now. Taking the masking tape off was really more of a chore than gluing everything together. Now, there are some letters that are double. For the most part, they're pretty much looking the same. The E's are slightly different, and I believe the N's kind of lean towards one direction or the other. The A's and the D's look pretty much identical, so just match it up as you can with the marked letters on the sign, and you should be good, which is what I'm doing here. And then you can see how that R will go on top of the glued area. The ends they're pretty tricky. I mean, for the most part, they look exactly the same. The base of the one edge tends to stick out a tiny bit more. That's kind of how you can tell the difference, but honestly, you could put each one in either spot and it will look just fine. But when you do price them, one of them tends to lean that direction and the other one has a slight bend to the other direction. So you just flip it around. So the E's, you can see one of them has a slight bend in it. So those are very easy to tell apart. Now, we just placed them there. We didn't glue them. But as we glue them right now, we're just going to pick one up and then glue on the sign itself right on top of where the marked areas are. And don't do too much, just a simple line across each one, and then place it on there and hold it for a couple of seconds. I wouldn't even worry about spraying at this point. By the time you even reach the spray, it'll be dry. Alright, I don't think we need to show every single letter being glued, but you get the idea. But I did want to say, if you got too much glue, get like a fine, like micro fiber cloth, something that won't leave little dust bunnies or whatever. Just wipe it off really quickly, and then glue it again. And if you think like you got too much glue and it's already dried, when we do the matte clear coat at the end, it should kind of minimize the look of the glue. You almost won't even see it. It'll take the glare out. So I wouldn't worry about it. Now, when it comes to doing the R, depending on how you glue the base layer, there may be a slight offset of the layers there. So I would recommend using the spray along here if your layers are not even. Well, now the fun part. Now these are easy to do, they're just a little tedious, and you definitely need to use deactivator spray. Now these go in a crisscross pattern. It's a little tricky to show on here, but if you follow along when I do it, it'll make sense. The most important thing I can tell you is, however you do this, always do it the same way. Go to the same hole first, go to the same side first, whatever you do. That way it makes it less confusing. So I went in from the front and came out the back, and now I'm just gonna kind of pull the slack out until I have a little nub kind of hanging down that I can have enough to glue in place. And this is usually where the pick comes in handy. It's a small little tool that I can use to hold down the cord while I glue it, and then I don't get any glue on my fingers. And then I spray it, and as you spray it, yes, this will probably end up sticking to it, and you might have to get the glue off of the pick once in a while. But better the pick than your fingers. Okay, so we rotated the sign, and now you can see I'm going across the bottom, and then I'm going to go through the back, come out the other hole, and then I'm going to pull it some slack there, again leaving that on the other side, and then I'm going to crisscross it back over to the first side, keeping it kind of tacked, go back around the back side, and then you can see you have some excess that you can cut off, which I will do. And then again, you're left with that little kind of nub. Again, pull it tight, use your pick to hold it in place, and then add some more glue. Again, spraying it. And then I tend to glue all over the cords again, both sides. Not both sides, the front and back, but both sides, the left and right of the crisscross. And that will just ensure that it never comes undone. And then we just repeat those steps 5 more times. Alright, the easy part here, we're just going to use a matte clear coat. And again, I'm showing you, even I mess up on the glue sometimes, but once we spray this clear coat, because it's a matte finish, it'll take away the shine from the glue and, you know, make the make the wood a little darker in tint, and you should not see the glue at all. Also, please wear a mask when you're doing this. I always tend to forget or just not bother with it, and it's bad. If you're not going to wear a mask, at least do it outside or something, out in the open. And I'm just showing you up close. You don't see the glue anymore. Alright, so you should have a completed sign. Hopefully everything went good, nothing broke, but you know, stuff happens in shipping. Sometimes you mess up and had to pull a part off. If you need a replacement part or something was broken or missing, just let me know. And as always, like, subscribe. Until next time. Thanks.